für Executives, die sich beruflich neu orientieren und einen Job suchen, der wirklich zu ihnen passt. Ich bin Sabine Lanius und ich berate seit Jahren, sogar schon Jahrzehnten, Executives, die sich beruflich neu orientieren oder, wie man auf Englisch sagt, in der Phase in between two jobs, und damit sie auf direktem Weg einen neuen Job finden. Und damit das gut gelingt, muss man eben auf mehr achten als nur auf fachliche Expertise. Es ist diese Feinheiten, diese kleinen Dinge. Und dafür haben wir heute einen Experten zu Gast. Er ist ein Experte, er ist ein bekannter Autor, ein internationaler Top-Speaker. Er hat in 5 TED-Talks über Stimme, Klang, Kommunikation und sein neues Thema Zuhören gesprochen und wurde insgesamt 150 Millionen Mal gesehen. Ich habe ihn gefunden über seinen Talk How to Speak to People so that people want to listen. Und dieser TED Talk gehört zu den 10 am meisten gehört. Ich glaube, er ist Nummer 6. So, a warm welcome to you, Julian. It's such a pleasure that you're here because I just said that your topic is so important, even for people in a job interview. Most of the people focus on like the competencies or this part, but I think speaking and listening are very important topics, and there are techniques, and you know lots of them because you're specialized on that. What do you think? Why does voice matter in a job interview?
Well, it matters hugely in all aspects of life, actually, Sabine, not just in a job interview. So the interesting thing is that we've been using our voices and our ears to communicate for hundreds of thousands of years. I mean, language probably 150,000 years, but Homo sapiens has been here for now they're saying maybe even 500,000 years, so a long time. And in all that time, we've used the noises we can make with our mouths and our throats and our ears to communicate. Even before language, it would have been non-verbal communication using noise. But since language, that's been the way all human knowledge and emotion and communication has happened until 5,000 years ago we invented writing. Now, for most of that time, writing has been the province of the elite. It's really only a couple of 100 years, maybe, that everybody has been taught how to read in school in most countries. So we now teach our children how to read and write. And it's a scandal, of course, if a child leaves school unable to read. Shocking. We don't teach our children how to speak or how to listen.
Right.
Which is crazy, because these are skills and everybody mistakes them for capabilities. Everybody speaks. Yeah, I'm listening. We all listen. No, we don't, because most people don't even know that listening and speaking are skills. So they don't practice them. They don't attempt to master them. And, going into a job interview without having thought about your voice and your listening skills, I mean, would you go on stage at Carnegie Hall to give a piano recital having never had a lesson or done any practice? I don't think so. You are hugely advantaged in life, and certainly in interviews, if you master the skill of speaking, and especially, I would also say, the skill of listening. So that's what we need to talk about today. And regardless of how good your CV is, if you connect with the interviewer on a human level and they feel that you are somebody who can express themselves articulately, who understands them and makes a connection with them, that's a huge advantage. And in fact, listening is now, according to LinkedIn's surveys, it's the number one skill, soft skill, that employers are looking for. So not just your technical abilities, but are you a good listener?
Oh, totally agree. Totally agree. But first, let's start with the voice. Because, no matter how experienced you are, no matter if you're women or men, or normally people get, at least at a certain level, nervous when invited to a job interview, which is part of the process. But from your experience, what is it, what nervousness does to people, what changes their voice, what influence does it have?
Well, there's a couple of directions to come at this from. I'll do the direct one, the simplest one first. Nerves are your friend. Most people have an issue with nerves because they make it wrong to be nervous. Nerves, that's cortisol and noradrenaline coursing through your body. It's changing your body chemistry. It increases your heart rate. It makes you breathe faster. This is all your fight-flight reflex. It's designed to make you more effective, sharper, faster, better, stronger. Well, that's all good, isn't it? That's what we want if we're in a threat situation. So don't make the nerves wrong. Welcome the noradrenaline and understand that it's there to help you perform at your peak. Everybody gets nervous for big things. Olympic athletes on the 100-meter start line are very nervous. It's a critical moment in their lives, but they welcome the nerves because they know that that's going to help their performance. So when you're fighting it, that's a problem. Welcome it in the first place. If it becomes too much, and if it affects your voice, well, that's because you haven't done the groundwork. And you
Okay.
can temporary fix, and we'll talk about the groundwork in a moment, but you can
Yeah.
do a temporary fix, which is breathe. So a deep breath, if your voice goes a little bit like this and you're feeling very nervous, a big deep breath will settle everything down and help you to root your voice again and make it stable. So try not to do things like hold bits of paper. If your hands are shaking, then a piece of paper will telegraph that to somebody. So, there are things to avoid.
Yeah.
I've seen people come onto the TED stage holding a little script they're going to read. That's not a good tactic, really, because everybody can see that the piece of paper going like this. So, put your hands on your knees, sit calmly. If you're feeling, nobody can see your heart beating,
Yeah.
probably. So, that's all internal. It's not obvious. And just remember that the other person isn't conscious of how you're feeling. You are, but don't make it wrong. Just deal with it. It's okay. Now, the much more important and much longer term and more powerful solution is to prepare properly. And it's just the same as the way I train people on public speaking. I train people who have a TEDx talk coming up or who have an
Mhm.
important presentation coming up. And I do a lot of coaching like that virtually using platforms like this.
Mhm.
I use a method that I call PPD. So the first P is practice. Practice the thing that you're going to be doing. I don't mean the actual interview, but simply talking to somebody you don't know in speaking in public is a very good, analog really for a job interview because it's exactly the same thing. You're speaking to a bunch of people you don't know. It's a nerve-wracking situation. You're on a stage or in front of people. And
It
you
feels
practice
similar.
that. I'm sorry?
It feels similar.
Yes. Yeah. Now you can practice that. Join Toastmasters International or put a buddy group together of 4 or 5 of your friends and then meet every couple of weeks around somebody's house and everybody prepares a 5-minute talk and gives it to the rest of the people who then critique you and give you tips and advice and ways of improving. It's like anything. The first time you got on a bike when you were a child, it was terrifying. You fell off. It hurt. Now if you get on a bike, you don't think about it. Same with a car. First time you drove a car, your hands were, stuck to the steering wheel. You were sweating and terrified. Now you drive and you don't even remember the drive. You were thinking about everything but. Practice makes anything easier. So if you practice the skill of speaking in unfamiliar situations, you'll become better and better at it.
I totally agree.
The second P is prepare.
Mhm.
Here I'll give you a very, very important distinction, which I train people on. It's about listening. Everybody's listening is unique. Now, most people don't understand that. It's very common for people effectively to think everybody listens like I do. They don't. And if that's your assumption, you're effectively speaking to yourself the whole time, which is not very effective because it's not you you're talking to, it's somebody else. Different background, with maybe a different language, different culture, different background, different assumptions, values, beliefs, attitudes, expectations, intentions, emotions. I mean, all sorts of things color our listening. So there is a very powerful question that you can ask yourself in advance of the interview or the talk or whatever you're going to do. And that is, what's the listening that I will be speaking into? What's the listening I'll be speaking into? We always speak into a listening. So if it's an interview, if you can, try and find out something obviously about the company and its way of being, its culture. Is it a very lively, exciting company, or is it quite formal and professional? Is it a bit informal, cheeky? Do they like a little bit of difference? What do people wear? How are you going to present yourself in a way that actually means that you're congruent with the values? If it's a really funky advertising agency, you don't want to walk in a formal suit. If it's, on the other hand, if it's a very, very old-fashioned bank or law firm, then jeans are not going to be the way to go. So what's the listening I'm speaking into affects how you present yourself in every way. Is it a formal handshake? Is it hi, morning? Or is it, oh, good morning, very nice to meet you? So, I mean, particularly in German, you have very formal ways of greeting people, which, friends wouldn't use to each other, and you wouldn't use in an advertising agency, probably, depending on the seniority of the person. And if you can find out about the actual person you're going to be speaking to, that's even better. If you know anybody who knows them or who's had a contact with them, or look them up on LinkedIn, try and understand a little bit about them, do the research, because then we'll get better. You understand the listening I will be speaking into, and you can speak in an appropriate way and decide on appropriate content. So that's prepare. And deliver, of course, is much easier when you've done the preparation and the practice. But deliver is go and give it your best shot, and just enjoy it. You know your material, you know who you are, you know who you're speaking to, and you can actually try your very best to enjoy the experience. And the more of these you do, of course, the better you become at it. So you can get you'll have the right content, you'll have the right delivery, and you can do as good a job as possible. And then if you don't get it, you don't get it. There was somebody better. Hey, it happens. It's okay. So, I think the second noble truth of Buddhism is all human suffering comes from attachment. So try to be too attached outcome. Then everything gets a lot easier.
True. And this is what makes you stumble in a job interview, really, because you're trying too much to say the right thing, instead of using it as getting to know each other, which is the step before. As much as I agree to your things, the things you said, what would you say if a candidate is in a job interview and he or she realizes that he wants to project more calm presence? Is there something you can do?
Well, yes, breathe is the most important thing that you can do. Posture is very important in terms of projecting. So it's quite good to visualize, for example, a string attached to the top of your head. So rather than maybe sitting a bit hunched and looking all tense, if you have that string visualization, as you come in, as you sit down, everything falls from the string. Your shoulders relax and you look calm, poised, and relaxed. Everything's balanced. Whether you're sitting or standing, it works perfectly well. Definitely breathing, and of course, looking at the person. very important. There's an acronym I use in conversation type communications, which is RASA, and it stands for receive, appreciate, summarize, ask. Now, obviously, in an interview situation, a lot of the conversation will be the other person asking you questions. Nevertheless, when I used to interview people, I mean, I had years as an entrepreneur, grew a company from 0 to 150 people, and
Mm-hmm.
so forth. So I
Great.
interviewed a lot of people in my
Mm-hmm.
business life. And if people asked me intelligent questions, that was interesting. It was slightly different. If it shows they're actually interested, tell me, how does it work in this company, this thing that you just mentioned, or what are the, how do you judge people, or do you have a 360-degree, evaluation scheme? What are the most important things? Blah blah blah. Asking intelligent questions is a very good way to make that relationship work. It's not a one-way street where you're just sitting there waiting for the next question and doing your best to answer it. It should be a conversation. It should be two human beings meeting and forming a little mini relationship in the space of half an hour or however long you've got. Even if it's 5 minutes, you can be memorable by being a bit different
Yeah.
and actually having a relationship with the
Yeah.
person, not just playing the game. I'm quite a big fan of what they call in the movie industry breaking the fourth wall in interviews.
Mm-hmm.
In a situation which is called an interview, it's a game we're both playing. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's quite nice to acknowledge that. So, for example, if I come into an interview and I am feeling extremely nervous, and
Mm-hmm.
I sit down and you're, "Oh, good morning, Sabine, nice to meet you." Can I just say right up front, I am feeling incredibly nervous at the moment. I'm really sorry. It's not my normal way, but that's breaking the fourth wall because
Okay.
I'm actually owning something that most people would try and hide, and keep it below the level of consciousness. But I'm quite a big fan of being open, honest, transparent, and again, forming a human connection with the other person. And also it means that perhaps they'll make an allowance for that and they'll try and see past that and maybe they'll have a chat about it and say, "Oh, don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of that kind of honesty. So I hope
Yeah.
that's a long-winded way of answering that question.
Yeah. And I completely agree with you. It is, it's like a click where you instantly have a connection if you say things like that, because most of the time the other realizes it if
Yeah.
he's an experienced interviewer.
Mm.
So then it's something to connect and something good to talk about.
Mhm.
But and let's go into a very special area of a job interviews, because as an executive, like people in our age or a little bit younger, they normally don't have only one interview. Normally you have, like, with the executive researcher, and then with the, let's say, with the boss, and maybe a third interview. And often with the third or fourth interview, there comes something like um, a case study or something. You have to present something, and this changes the situation, because it's no longer a face-to-face on one table situation. It's a presentation where you stand in front of a, most of the time it's a flip chart or something like that, and you do a presentation. What are your recommendations for prep, handling this situation very good?
Well, it's pretty much what I just said to you because that's from my presentation training techniques,
Okay.
PPT, practice, prepare, deliver. So if you know what you're going to be talking about, that's a big advantage. Of course, you can prepare a short talk. And then part of the prepare stage is to rehearse. So for my first ever TED talk, quite a few years ago, I must have rehearsed that
How
talk
long did
20,
it ago? How long is it ago? Do you remember?
I think it was 2009,
Okay.
maybe 2011, something
So,
like that. But, a few years ago.
okay.
I rehearsed that at least 20 times
Yeah.
because, I'm not a big fan of memorizing things or reading, because I think reading, writing isn't like speaking. But if you memorize the thing, if you really, really, really rehearse to the point where you know it incredibly well, then you move into what I call jazz speaking. So a jazz band, for example, they all know the chords, they know the way the tune goes, and they have
Mhm.
freedom to extemporize
Mhm.
up as they go along. They do whatever is coming from their soul. They generate it. It's real. It's happening now. It's them being expressive within the flow of the song. Now, if you rehearse a talk, if they're asking you, if you know before you go in, you have to give a 5-minute talk on, how you would solve this particular issue in the world or for a company or whatever it might be,
Mhm.
well, you can prepare the talk and then you practice, practice, practice until you really know it and you know you're not going to overrun and you're going to answer the question. You can maybe try it in front of some other people to see that it works and so forth. When
With
you
your
go,
coach?
you know it so well that you can jazz. You can
Yeah.
actually generate it. And you can read the room. Again, what's the listening I'm speaking into? Are they all, informal people or formal people? Or, what does it look like? Am I going down well? Are they looking very stern? Should I try harder? Should I make a joke? Should I not make a joke? These are all things which will come fairly naturally if you know what you're doing and you're into jazz. Then it's a question of reading the room and responding to the room. And you can do that naturally and easily because you've rehearsed it so well. So that's important. I mean, of course, if they ask you to make something up on the spot, that's a different skill. That's improv.
Yeah.
Well, if that's what you're going to have to do, then go practice improv. There are schools of it. You can go and work with people who teach improv, who teach, improvised drama or improvised comedy, particularly.
Theater groups are here, lots of them.
Of course. So again, it's a question of practice the skill that you're going
Mhm.
to deploy to the point where you're proficient at it, and then it doesn't become, if somebody says, okay, you stand up and tell us a funny story, it's not terrifying because you know how to do that. So as best you can, the important thing is to understand the skills and the content that you'll need to deploy in the situation, practice them, prepare, and then you'll be able to deliver very well.
It's funny that you call that jazz, Julian. So funny because I think of about Tango Argentino. And I had a few rehearsals with a dancing partner, and we did it in the same way. We never had, a complete plan, but we danced with each other to the songs. And we did it 20, 30 times. And on the rehearsal, it worked very well because we trained. Training is 51 part of the success in the situation, I think.
Huge, absolutely huge. And, the answer is if you don't practice the skill and if you don't prepare for the actual event, then your delivery is not going to be very good, probably. It'll be amazing if you can do it on on the day because you haven't practiced and you haven't prepared. And then don't be surprised if you fall over at the first hurdle or you step on your dance partner's foot or you mumble your words and get all sweaty and nervous and blow the whole thing. So it's a question of the work you put in advance. That's giving you the best chance. And similarly with voice, for example, you
Mhm.
I speak on stages all over the world. I just got back from Kazakhstan. I was speaking in Almaty, Kazakhstan, to 2,000 business leaders. So
Mhm.
that's what I do, apart from the coaching, workshops, training people, and so forth. Speaking is what I do, and I trained. I don't do this. It's not an accident. I don't just wander onto stages and be able to hold an audience of 2,000 people. I have trained. I have worked at this. It's a skill. It's something I do professionally, and therefore it behooves me, and it would be rude to the audience if I didn't train properly and understand how to deploy this skill. So working on your voice, again, if voice is important to you, get a coach. Work with a drama coach, presentation coach, singing coach, whatever it might be, and do the work. We all have this instrument. It's an instrument we all play, and yet almost nobody has trained in how to use their voice effectively, how to make the best of the equipment they're given, and how to understand where to resonate from, for example, and how to use things like silence and pacing and pitch and prosody in effective ways. You know, if you've got a very boring voice and you tend to speak all on one note the whole time and it's all very flat and boring, well, you can change that. You know, you work with somebody to change that and you become conscious of it. Or if you've got a very, very quiet voice and this is how you speak the whole time, you can work on that. You can make it louder. So it's a question of increasing your range and your consciousness of what you're doing all the time. It's a wonderful instrument. You know, you only have to think of Pavarotti, Robert Plant, Aretha Franklin, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, whoever your favorite amazing singer in the world might be, whatever genre of music, the voice can do incredible things. And guys, listening to this, you know, if you have not trained, you're probably only scratching the surface of what your voice can do. It's another thing that can differentiate you enormously in a job interview, is how good you are with your voice.
Yes, totally agree. And not only in the job interview, even if you get the role as a leader, then you can go on using your role. So therefore, I'm going to ask the thing you just mentioned. People can work with a voice coach. What I did years ago, and you just reminded me on that because it was a wonderful old lady. And she said to me in the first lesson, she said, Sabine, we're going to start with breathing. And I was like, what? Really? I was like, I do this since years. But it is so effective. It has such an impact. But if people would like to work with you, did you bring an offer for us?
Oh, sure, yes. I mean, I'm not a voice coach. So, you know, if you want to work on voice, you find somebody local, look them up on the internet, and they
Yeah.
will take you through projection, diaphragm control, breathing, posture, all these kind of things. That's not really what I do. I am much more of a presentation coach for people who've got a TEDx or something coming up. I do workshops for teams. And I'd be very happy to hear from anybody at my email address, jt@juliantreasure.com, if anybody is interested in working with me. I also do have a little offer to make to you, which is all about this. The Listening
Okay.
Society is a platform I've set up on the internet, and it's full of resources for anybody who wants to improve their speaking, listening, and who is interested in sound generally, which I think is a wonderful place to be. So I've given you a link, Sabina, which is a month's free membership to try it out and see if you like it. It's not very expensive to be a member after that. It's like £1 a day or something. And it's even got my entire 9-chapter, 7-hour training course on speaking and listening in there, which originally that was available for £998. So that's all in there. So I've got everything I know in there, really. And I'd love to see anybody in there.
Thank you so much. And as I promised, I put it under each, in YouTube, I put it under each podcast. So everybody who's listening to us right now can use that. And I'll listen to it for sure. So let's go on with the mindset part, right? So as I think we both agree on that our inner dialogue influences our voice and our posture. So what would you recommend to come across really present and positive as the favorite candidate?
I think there's a very important point about the what people call self-talk, which very often is negative. It's a little voice in your head that's going, "You idiot, you messed that up. Oh, you're going to make a complete mess of this." All that negative stuff. The important thing to understand about negative self-talk is that you are not the voice in your head. That's not you. It may be a part of you that got damaged years ago. It's trying to stop you from having a pain that you had again, that kind of thing. But if you're not the voice, who are you? The answer is you're the one listening to the voice.
Mhm.
Now, that puts you in a completely different position because you're kind of the king or queen on the throne, and the voice is like the jester coming up and giving you sort of random advice. And you're in a position where you can tousle its head, say, thanks for sharing, and I'm going to go on that dance floor anyway. So if you're in that position, if you start to have that way of perceiving the voice in your head, it means you can send it packing. You can say, thanks very much, but I'm going to do it anyway, because it's not you. You are the one listening. And I think that's very powerful. Of course, you can change the self-talk as well. You can train that too. So people do things like they write affirmations out, which they see every morning when they brush their teeth, or, you have little mantras that you can say to yourself to adjust the level of self-talk. And it depends on how much we've been hurt or damaged through life. The assumptions which underlie the kind of self-talk are very important to understand and be transparent about to yourself, because you can't change anything until you shine the light of consciousness on it. When you become conscious that, I have this assumption that everybody thinks I'm an idiot. Well, if that's your assumption, you're going to have a hostile relationship with most people, because you'll interpret them trying to help you as patronizing, or you'll interpret them asking you a question as doubting you. And it will end up you being kind of aggressive the whole time. So once you get to understand that that assumption is in there, then you can challenge it internally. So I think it's a wonderful thing to, in my book, How to Be Heard, I start off by asking people about their values and about their beliefs and so forth. These are very important things if you're going to be a powerful speaker, because you need to be transparent and clear about what drives you. What are your intentions? Where do you want to get to? How are you going to get there? What are your values? What is
Mhm.
you? What's right and wrong for you? And what's it all based on? What are your experiences? So I think becoming conscious is the game. And that's one of the reasons why I enjoy speaking, because, when you're standing on a stage in front of 2,000 people, as I just did in Almaty, if you're not
Mhm.
conscious at that moment, when are you going to be? You know, it's quite important. So it means when I'm standing on that stage, every gesture, every expression, every word, every nuance of the voice is conscious, because
Yes.
that is what I'm doing. And it's a great practice at becoming more and more conscious in life in general, both what I say and how I say it, and conscious of the effect on the other person, the listening I'm speaking to and generating all the time for myself. So to me, the whole game is consciousness. It's all about going around the spiral staircase, up and round and round, becoming more and more conscious every day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an ongoing process. As you said, a spiral stair. Does it make a difference to you if you're speaking to 20 or to 2,000 people?
Not very much anymore. I think the biggest audience I've done is 11,000. Uh,
Wow.
I don't get nervous to the point I get excited. And, the nerves that I get are, as I started off by saying, there's something I welcome. So, certainly if you took my pulse before I go on stage to 2,000 people, it would be elevated. And I probably have got noradrenaline going round. But because I welcome it, I'm feeling good. And I don't feel kind of inhibited or affected in any way by, the slightly elevated state that I'm in. It's like anything, it's the analogy I gave, or the two analogies I gave earlier, riding a bike, driving a car. Once you've done it over and over and over again, it doesn't really make a lot of difference whether it's 200 people or 2,000 people. It's an audience.
Yes.
And it's lovely to connect with an audience and the ways of doing that, which I've learned over the years. So I love it. It's fun for me now.
Great to hear that. Last question, final one. is there something you would recommend that people listening to us, which they could do, like everyday practice? You were just talking about writing, using affirmations, using a mantra, writing something down. Is there something you would recommend the executives listening to us, which they could do in that phase in between two jobs, where what you could practice like every morning or every evening? Do you have something like that?
Yes, I think the most important one of all would be silence, actually, Sabina. Silence. Give yourself 3 minutes of silence a couple of times a day. You don't have to meditate. You don't have to do anything. Simply sit quietly in the quietest place you can find. You can do it in nature. That's lovely. There's a rising trend in the world, which is called Shinrin Yoku. It's forest bathing. It comes from Japan. Walking in the forest, lovely. Or sitting quietly in your bedroom, or in the quietest place you can find. Give your ears a rest and become comfortable with silence. Many people aren't, and that's a problem, because if you're not comfortable with silence, you'll gabble. You'll fill every moment with ums and ers and and all of those useless filler words.
Mm-hmm.
Speak more quickly. Silence
Mm-hmm.
is fantastic. It's a very powerful tool to use when you're speaking, because you can stop and it's fine. So if you're comfortable with stopping like that, it gives you so much more power in your speaking, to emphasize things, to change the pace, to keep people interested and engaged, and to show that you're a master of speaking, as opposed to gabbling the whole time, getting really, really, people get excited, they speak too quickly and they keep on going like this, and it just becomes overwhelming and the other people can't understand what you're saying properly. So a practice of silence, is so important, and it's the best possible thing you can do to become a better listener. It gives your ears a rest, familiarizes you with the baseline for all sound, which is silence, and it gives you a powerful tool to use in speaking as well. That's the one I would recommend.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here and being my guest in our podcast. And lovely to hear your experiences. Lovely that you shared your input. And I'm quite interested on what feedback we are going to get. Thank you for coming here.
My pleasure.
Und liebe Hörer, vielen Dank fürs Dabeisein. Sie wissen ja, wenn Sie bewerbungsstark weiterhören wollen und weiter so tolle, inspirierende Gäste haben wollen, dann freue ich mich, wenn Sie den Podcast abonnieren und wenn unsere Community wächst, wenn dann noch mehr spannende Gäste kommen, und wir freuen uns auch über Fragen, Anregungen, Impulse. Und alles, worüber Julian gesprochen hat, finden Sie unter dem Podcast, egal ob Sie auf Apple, Spotify oder YouTube das gucken, und können dann seine Angebote nutzen. Herzlichen Dank.